Welcome to our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast, episode 39. Each week, we will unfold the most recent cyber attacks and will provide you with valuable insights on how to shield your business from these threats, along with practical steps and tips to enhance your cybersecurity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Cybersafe Digest, episode 39. We'll keep going. This one is about email security. I'm Martin Roberts, Managing Director of NewWays, and I'm here with my colleague,
Toby Stevenson, Chief Technology Officer at NewWays.
Toby, good morning, or good day
Morning.
to you. Email security, a bit boring. People, when it works really well. In fact, people complain that why am I paying all this money? Because I don't see any benefit from it. But actually, it's because it's working. But what we should do is maybe just talk about the mechanics of email security, what it actually does. Yeah, some of the benefits of some of the features you can get with certain packages, and we'll talk about a particular one because it's what we're expert in, and how to move big files on, and some of the risks of using non-recommended product or ways to market, all this shadow IT we've talked about in the past few episodes. Is that good with you, Toby?
Yeah, sounds good to me. Sounds good.
So, Toby, as the expert, explain to us in concise terms, what do you get with email security? What does it do? And how does it protect you?
So the main reason that anybody wants to secure email is to stop bad stuff coming in and hitting the user mailboxes, and it's one of the most prevalent ways that people get hit with ransomware or other things, so much so that there's a whole criminal industry around it. So, we talk about business email compromise. This is where mailboxes get taken over and surreptitious rules are put in place to redirect and interfere with message flow. And email security products are designed to combat some or all of this. And what we'll be talking around today really is more of the protection mechanisms and the capabilities of such tools that are designed to facilitate clean email flow. Let's say that. So I guess the things to point out really are that most consumer-based systems, so things like Hotmail and Gmail and things like that, don't really have an awful lot of this capability in them. They may scan for viruses, but as we've touched on previous pod, most malware these days is custom rolled, so it doesn't get triggered by the same sets of definitions that antivirus detects against. And the native capabilities of the lowest Office 365 license is also very similar. It does basic antivirus scanning, but the reality is in the modern climate that those things are just not enough. You're increasing the chances of bad stuff getting through to your end users, who are going to be enticed through various phishing mechanisms to click on something.
Okay, I guess there's also some good personal practice here as well, and that's dealing with emails and marking them as junk and things like that, and blocking senders. And it's a habit to get into, regardless of what solution you've got in place. I spend my first 20 minutes of my day going through all my emails coming overnight and say, yeah, junk, and such like, and it learns from that, obviously, and I stop getting that through, because and it's like there's an epidemic right now of people trying to sell me business to business lists of users, and I get 15 of those a day, 20 of those a day. And all I have to do is respond with unsubscribe or stop or whatever. And the best thing in the situation is to not respond and just block them. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly used to be the right advice in the past. I mean, with GDPR and things like that, people should respect you when you say unsubscribe me. The honest answer is it depends. If it is genuine bulk email that you don't want to see anymore, it's coming from the supermarket or it's coming from your favorite high street brand and you don't want it anymore, click on the unsubscribe link.
That's right.
If it's something that is slightly more targeted, slightly more off the wall, then just ignoring it is probably the best route. The reality is that people that are using these emails to farm addresses, I validate that they are there's a fleshy body at the other end of them. They don't rely on that anyway. There's hidden pixels in the email, so if you open it up, it ticks a box on the back end somewhere of their system, say, oh yes, this address is live because they open this invisible graphic. So it's hard to block against those kinds of things. So, which is why you kind of need this kind of multi-leveled email security solution in place. It's why the bog standard anti-spam stuff is not really up to scratch these days.
Okay.
And I think probably the one bit of advice I will give for people that are from a personal and home perspective, and then we can then talk around the business side of things. Actually, probably 3 bits of advice. The first bit of advice would be, don't access your personal stuff from your work computer.
Absolutely.
Because we've already said that they probably don't have the same levels of protection. So you could be introducing something unwittingly and sidestepping all that wonderful security that you've put on in place from a corporate perspective. The second would be, and most of the providers offer this now, look at your emails through a web browser. Don't download them to a piece of software like you used to do in the past. Drive it all through a browser, because it stops much of that attachment content getting onto your machine. And then the final piece will be is if you are an Outlook.com or a Hotmail.com or one of those Microsoft free services, if you take one of the Microsoft 365 home packages, it will actually activate a whole bunch of extra security features that are not far away from business quality products. So they will scan links and a lot of the stuff we'll talk about later in this session suddenly get turned on for you and just level you up massively. So it's a nice thing to have if you're using one of those free Microsoft services. So yeah, they're kind of the 3 points for home usage.
Okay, so let's talk about businesses now. So we're going to talk about a particular product, Mimecast.
Yep.
Which we have many years of experience of, and actually we're a partner and such like. Now, the features that we talk about are not exclusive to Mimecast. It's just a product that we work with and we trust a great deal, a great experience with. So, folks, when we say Mimecast, we're not necessarily making a recommendation. We're just saying these are the features of this one, and we don't vouch or vouch against any other product. Okay, so why should I go and get a business type product like Mimecast, Toby?
Yeah, so probably the biggest reason for uplifting from the standard anti-spam capabilities of something like Microsoft 365 has would be just for the variety of different security levels that are in place. So, as you rightly say, a lot of these technologies are not unique to Mimecast. You know, they are prevalent in most of the leaders. In fact, in some of them, the uprated Microsoft licenses, you get some of these capabilities.
Yes.
So some of the things that are really, really useful. So we've established over previous podcasts, and we've touched on it briefly in this one, is that antivirus is no longer the force that it used to be. So to have an effective anti-malware solution, you can't just scan for things that have been seen before, but you also need to understand behaviors and what happens there.
Sure.
And Mimecast has a technology, and a number of the other vendors have it, which is effectively a sandboxing technology, which will take the attachments, detonate them in a virtual environment, and see what they're going to do. So one of the ways that historically attackers have tried to introduce malware into environments or introduce remote access Trojans into an environment is to send a weaponized Word document, PDF file. And I'm sure that the listeners will have seen things like this, that maybe not directly, but from different reports and learning pieces, where a message has come in and it purports to be an invoice or a sales order or something like that, but it says right on the front, macros need to be enabled. Click here to enable the macros so you can see the content. And then there may be some...
Just a hint here, Toby. I think it's don't.
Yeah, exactly. But so again, it's that typical phishing call to action. There's this, they're waving something under your nose that feels particularly attractive. Oh, look, there's a sales order here, but I can't see it. I need to click the buttons to see what it's going to be for. Microsoft have taken some steps within their products themselves to minimize the impacts of this. But what used to happen is that you would go and enable the macros and run the macro, and then that would then fire off a whole bunch of activity, which would include going to the internet, downloading some bad stuff, and then running that on your machine and doing X, Y, and Z to maintain persistence so that the bad guys can get back in. And basically, you would be in for a very bad day.
Yeah.
Now, Microsoft have made it harder, in response to this, made it harder to execute macros that come in by email, just natively speaking anyway. But what a sandboxing technology does is it would take that email while it's in flight on its way to you, and before it delivers it to you, it will open that file and witness its behavior. And its behavior will, when it opens, is the macro will run. It'll then go off to try and access some bad places on the internet. And the sandboxing technology will identify that and say, you can't have this, it's bad, it's going to cause you a real problem if you have it, so we're just going to block you from having access, and send you a message to that effect. Malicious content discovered, malicious macro discovered, something like that. So that's a really powerful thing, because essentially it's simulating what will happen when the end user gets the message and opens the attachment.
Okay.
Now, of course, this is always an arms race. So the bad guys start to do some clever things, which is to detect whether they're running in a sandboxed environment, which they can do with varying degrees of efficacy, which is why some technologies have adapted further. So they don't run these things in these virtual sandboxes. They actually run them on physical machines, so that the detection. So again, it's this cat and mouse arms race that's always been played. But ultimately, that's one of the things that a more advanced solution will give you, is this sandboxing technology. So a high degree of confidence that the attachment that has made it through to your inbox is safe to open.
That's the precise point. By the time it gets to you, you can be fairly confident that you can open it, but still be vigilant, still be careful.
Exactly. Yeah. One of the things I will always say is nothing is 100% accurate 100% of the time.
Yeah. And if you're not expecting the email from that person, if you don't know the person, you're not expecting the email from this, it's not part of a conversation you're having, don't open it. Contact your IT department, your IT contact your MSP and say, hey, what's this? Just be cautious. And frankly, one of the things I'd advocate to a lot of people, and it's not unique to me, but if you can pick up their telephone, that lovely old piece of technology, and go, hello, you've just sent this to me. What is it? It actually can cut out a lot of pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, don't ring the telephone number that's on the email.
Absolutely.
So get the number from somewhere else. But yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you try and find a way of validating it. Yeah. I say these technologies are helpful, but they're not infallible, and the bad guys are always looking for ways to circumvent.
Okay, so that's one of the features of a good email security system. There's also some other features that you may get, and I'm thinking about the ability to do the thing we all struggle with, and we all then circumvent, is we spent hours producing a wonderful spreadsheet with lots of it. It's a huge thing, and we've got to send it to a colleague somewhere, or send it to somebody outside the organisation. And the first thing that happens, or images or whatever, something with a large size, and the first thing the system says is, can't send this. It's too big.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the first reaction of a lot of people is to go, I'll use Dropbox, or I'll use my personal email, or I'll use okay, which is sort of counter. It's not good practice. These tools can offer avenues to help you manage that. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is a kind of a slight pivot away from those protective mechanisms, so such as the sandboxing and this kind of a companion piece, which is URL checking. So basically making sure that any links that come in don't go to somewhere bad.
Yes.
But yeah, this is a kind of a slight pivot away to making sure that you as an organization have got a good handle on how your company data is being shared and distributed.
Yes.
And you're quite right, Martin. This is the sort of thing that happens. Someone tries to send a big spreadsheet or a bunch of photos from a trade show or a company event or whatever, and either they get an immediate bounce back that says this is too big, or you get one back that says the recipient can't receive because it's too big. So the natural reaction is, I'll zip it up so that I can compress it and send it, because That doesn't work because email systems don't care that you've done that, because they have to explode it to see how big it is anyway. So that won't trick it. It doesn't make it any smaller. It just, the problem remains. So people then say, okay, well, I'll stick it in Dropbox, or I'll put it in Google Drive, or I'll, even worse, I'll use WeTransfer or something like that. The problem with all of these things is that as an organization, you lose control. If it's not a company sanctioned platform, you will lose control of that data. So if somebody sticks it into Dropbox, unless you're providing Dropbox to your organization and have overarching control of all the content that's in those Dropbox instances, that data's gone. You've got no control over it. Who gets access to it, who shares it onwards, or anything like that. Similarly with things like WeTransfer, once you copy that stuff into there and it gets sent, what happens to it after that? Who knows? And yeah, there's this great saying, and lots of different industry leaders have said it. But if a service doesn't cost you anything, you are the product. And ultimately, that's what's happening here. These services, if they are existing for free, there is some other way they're monetizing that activity that you're using. Now, I'm not saying that they are stealing the data or that they're doing something nefarious with it, but you just don't know and you have no control over it. Similarly,
I'm going to interrupt you there, Tim, because actually it's a fundamental thing to recognise, that nothing in this world is free, and you're quite right. If they're going to, how do these businesses exist? How do they make money? And if you're not paying for it, you're paying for it somewhere or other.
Your personal data and your behaviour in some way is paying for it.
Yeah, so very, 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 very important point to recognise. And if it's free, it isn't. Okay, good. Sorry.
You're paying for it in some way, one way or another. So, and then the other problem with these tools is once you've shared it, and this data set is then sitting in a third party's clutches, you've got no control of what they do with it after that as well. So, if you are sending this on and it's some relatively confidential information, you want to kind of have some control over that, and that's where some of these collaboration platforms or email security systems can offer some risk. So, from a Mimecast perspective, what if we look at the issue of sending stuff that's too big?
Yes.
And how do you get around that? So historically, we've said things like Dropbox and WeTransfer, and there are other tools out there that operate with a similar model with similar risks. Mimecast has a technology called large file send. As the name suggests, it allows you to send large files.
Send large files, do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely a Ron Seal moment. It does what it says on the tin.
Absolutely.
So file content up to 2 terabytes. And the beauty here is basically what's happening is, much like these other tools, it's putting it into a location where the recipient can go and download it.
Yeah.
But the difference with the Mimecast route versus the others is that it's in your Mimecast tenant, so it's still within the boundaries of the company's responsibility. So you still have access to that data there and control and visibility over what has or hasn't been sent. So that's a really useful and powerful thing. The other thing that's good around it is it's time limited. So you share the files for a certain period of time, and then after that, they are removed. So it's kind of a time limited sharing of large files. The attachments themselves don't go into email, so they don't reside anywhere on your email system or on somebody else's email system. So again, it adds a level of security. If you don't want to be sharing documents on email, you're sharing a link to a document that's stored in a secure location, and you can wrap other security measures around it just to validate that the recipient is the only one that can gain access to it.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for indulging my digression there, which is one of those things I get excited about, because we've talked in the past about shadow IT and your use of Dropbox and other methods to transfer these big files is a really good starter for shadow IT, because
it is, and even without a tool like this, the irony is that actually your Microsoft 365 subscription, if you've got OneDrive in it, gives you the ability to share stuff without sending it in email anyway. You share a link, and then you retain full control, because you can say they can only look at it, they can't download it, you can revoke the sharing of it. So there's a whole bunch of things you can wrap around it. So there are much better ways than just sticking it in Dropbox or using one of these other sharing services.
Yeah. Okay. Right then. So I'm paying my subscription for my email security. We've talked about that basic sandbox thing, and it's also doing the URL filtering and all of those things. We've talked about the benefits of certain packages that might have large files sent. Is there anything else that I get by subscribing or investing in one of these systems?
Yeah, so some of these, the core functionality, checking for viruses and blocking out obvious spam and things like that, they all do that, and with varying degrees of efficacy. But again, it's part of that arms race that the stuff that's coming in is getting increasingly harder to spot. And we touched on a previous podcast about how AI generated content is going to make it even harder for the human eye to spot these things. But machines themselves can be very good at seeing these anomalies. And different vendors have different takes on how to do this, but there's this concept of something called social graphing, which is basically understanding what normal looks like, the kind of language that you use in emails, the kind of people that you speak to on a regular basis, and flagging against anomalies to that normal baseline. Mimecast have a technology that does this. Some of the other third-party vendors have this as well. But again, that's another good way of helping you identify if an email is really legit or not. So,
okay, let's just talk about it a little bit more if we can. So, because that's very, very fascinating. Because anybody who knows me, I'm not hoping to give too much away, but I'm not particularly verbose in my emails. You will know this. I don't mess around with "Good morning, Toby," and I hope you're having a nice day, and I hope the family's all right, and how's the dog, and things like that, and such like, before meandering into the subject of the email. I can be quite. It could be interpreted as terse. It's not meant to be. It's just, hey, my excuse. I'm a busy man, and I also think, I'm genuinely want to get to the point. So can these systems recognize that if somebody wrote to you who was very verbose, purporting to be me, will it recognize that?
Yeah, that on its own may not be enough to knock it over the edge and mark it as a negative, but there may be other telltale signs in the message as well that would suggest that. But that's what this whole technology around social graphing is for, is looking what normal looks like and flagging when that's been deviated from.
Okay, brilliant. So when I start being nice and thoughtful, it'll all go wrong. Nobody will get my email anymore, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, the way that a lot of the social graphing tools work is that you have to be really off the chart to be automatically blocked. Most of the time, what they do is they'll inject banners into the message to say, this doesn't sound like the person you normally deal with, or you don't normally exchange emails with this person at this time of the day, or you've never had an email from this person before. And of course, if it's someone you email all the time,
yes,
you can kind of put two and two together. So rather than it at this stage, I think because it's something that is still relatively subjective. It's more of it's not quite a traffic light system, but it's like a warning banners that get thrown into the email, so you can maybe have pause for thought and just say, actually, is this really a legit email?
Yeah, I mean, I often see banners which say, hey, this is an email from somebody from a domain which is only recently registered.
Yeah.
Or you've not had a conversation with this person before.
Yeah.
And one of the marketing tricks, and this is no dissing of marketing people, they often start their emails with our previous conversation regarding so and so, or what we said last time, when actually they've never written to us before. And I get banners in that telling me, hey, you've not spoken to this person before. So that's a little sign there, which is very useful to me. Okay.
I think one of the things that actually is quite cool, and it comes back into that protect banner of features. So a lot of these things, you might say, these are at their point in time. So the email passes through and it's checked and gets a clean bill of health, and then it gets delivered.
Yeah.
Some of the more advanced solutions can retrospectively keep an eye on what's going on, and if they make a determination later on down the line that actually that is a bad email, they can go claw it out of the mailbox and anywhere else that it's gone to protect you. And Mimecast have this, Microsoft have it, Microsoft call it ZAP, which is quite cool. It's kind of it's a natty little acronym for it. But the idea being is that some of these things may pass that first initial scan, but it's only when there's more intelligence around a particular threat or a particular threat actor that's sending messages that it might be that, we did see some things that match. Let's say a bunch of emails come in and they come in from what turns out to be a compromised mail system. And at the time, nobody knows it's a compromised mail system. And all the messages look fine. They don't contain any known bad malware. They've checked all the links and the links don't point to anywhere that's known to be malicious. But maybe 6 hours later, that perspective changes, and we now know that the links that are in that email point to a bad place, and we now know that email system has been compromised. Anything that's already passed through is gone on a traditional system. Yeah. Whereas if you've got a solution that is actually able to look at this and retrospectively take action, I suppose it's a bit like if you get off a plane and you walk through passport control and they look at your passport and they scan it on the computer and it gives a green tick and you walk on. Maybe later in the day they decide they don't like the look of you and then they come around with the van and they bundle you in the back and take you off.
Yeah. Oh, again. Yeah.
But it's that kind of thing. So it's that continual evaluation, that retrospective action that can be taken, which I think is a pretty powerful thing, because a lot of stuff that happens in cyber is very much, this is what we know as of now. And that situation can be quite fluid and it can change in an hour or in a day or in a week.
Absolutely.
And these kinds of mechanisms gives the ability to go and take retrospective action on something.
Okay, I guess, Toby, we could actually talk about the features of various email security systems all day, but we should spare our listeners that. What I will say is that I think just talking about those few features there and what it does is been a very useful exercise.
Yeah, I think the point is that there is definitely value in taking an upgraded email security system. I think that for me would be the takeaway that hopefully people have got. The default stuff, the stuff you get for free, is not really up to scratch when you compare it with the commercial offerings.
Absolutely. Okay, so fantastic. Right, now, Toby, you and I know that in a couple of weeks' time we've got a bit of an announcement to make, and we're not going to tell anybody what it is right now, but listen in anticipation, folks. There's something coming along which is, in our world, relatively big, but actually in yours might not be. But hey, the only way to find out is by tuning in the next couple of episodes to find out. This has been the Cybersafe Digest episode with Toby Stevenson and Martin Roberts. As always, it's for CEOs, CFOs, people who are in charge of IT, but not necessarily executing IT. We hope to provide a resource to you to help you through the big maze that is IT generally, and to give you advice. We hope you've enjoyed listening this week. Thank you very much, Toby.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time, and waiting and eager anticipation for the announcement that's coming up.
Thank you, everyone. We've reached the end of episode 39 of our Cybersafe Digest weekly podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and to make sure you don't miss out on our future episodes, hit that subscribe button on Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts. For more cybersecurity wisdom and resources, head over to our website at cybersafe.co.uk. See you next Thursday.